Well, welcome in. Thank you for joining us today. We are talking the college football transfer portal, and whether you like it or not is a different discussion, but it is here and it is dominating the college football landscape right now. We're about 10 days in, and it goes to the end of the week, and Arkansas is making some noise in there.
They are. They've done a really good job overhauling a few positions. I would say that they've done a really good job at overhauling the offensive line position, and they've done some changing at quarterback. They've obviously had a lot of movement out of the room at the quarterback position, and you lose your senior quarterback, Taylon Green. The one good thing that the quarterback room has is they are bringing back KJ Jackson. That was huge whenever they hired Silverfield. AJ Hill brought over from Memphis. Braden Fuller, an Angelo State transfer from the Division II ranks. He's been a multiple-year starter there. Intrigued to see what he has. I'm curious to see what he can bring to the table. And if all falls in the right way, Hank Hendricks, the Fayetteville quarterback, reclassified for this year. So that we could potentially see him get in the lineup whenever he graduates in May, if that is still slated to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Braden Fuller was one of the players that I definitely wanted to talk about today. His stats at Angelo State, which is a pretty decent D2 program,
Yep.
In his career, 3,231 yards, 33 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He was a 2024 Harlan Hill finalist, which is the D2 version of the Heisman, so has a pedigree from there, and we've seen Trinidad Chambliss come over from Fair State to Ole Miss, make an immediate impact there. So right now, I still think it's KJ Jackson's job. Now, obviously, we're a long way from the season, but it'll be interesting to see what transpires in the quarterback position.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, I looked at his stats a little bit. He's not looking at his completion percentage. He's hanging around that 55% mark, which is, to put it frankly, it's average.
Yeah.
And it's below what Arkansas has seen even with Taylon Green. I do think a key, though, looking at his stats, as you said it, only 5 turnovers, 5 interceptions. He holds on to the football, and I think that is something that can't be understated. I think that while his completion percentage might be a little low, I think you can get his efficiency up. I think you can scheme up his efficiency, shorter passes, intermediate, and also just play to his strengths. I think, not being able to turn the ball over is a huge key for any quarterback going into this next year, because it looks like it's going to be either a veteran in Fuller or you're going to have a relatively young core of guys coming in. And then I wonder, Ethan, do you think there's going to be somebody else that could potentially come into the room? Because there's a ton of guys out there with 2 to 3 years of eligibility, some top 4-star prospects that were recruited in the 23-24 classes that just haven't broke through in the lineup. Do you think Arkansas will pursue another quarterback?
Yeah, based on how active they've been in the portal, I think they definitely could. Let's look at those overall portal numbers. There have been 28 players that have come into the program. 37 leave from last year's team.
Right.
And so the on-3 portal rankings kind of factors in both those the ratings of those incoming players, the ratings of those outgoing, and it puts Arkansas at 9th in the country for its portal rankings, which is 4th in the SEC, and that's even a significant jump today than when I checked over the weekend. So Arkansas's been very busy over the last couple days, and I expect that to continue until the portal ends.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there. I think, we'll look at some of these groups that they've really overhauled. I want to hit on the offensive line. I think, offensive line, hit or miss last year. They had some success running the ball, but equally, it seems like they struggled to pass protect, drives stalled out, undisciplined penalties. They're bringing in quite a good crew of offensive linemen. They've got 5 significant guys. Terrence Robinson, who's probably one of my personal favorites. Do you know why?
No.
He's from Ouachita Baptist.
Okay.
So they bring in a Division II offensive lineman, a guy who was highly sought after. Adam Hawks, an Oregon State offensive lineman. Josiah Clemens from Memphis, and another Memphis kid, and Malachi Breland. And then a 4-star transfer prospect, Bryant Williams from Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. So they've done a really good job. Silverfield has done a really good job of overhauling the offensive line position. And I think that's not by coincidence. I think he knows that's a position of need, and it's a position that if he wants to get Arkansas winning in one of the toughest conferences in football, you need to be physical in the trenches.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about the offensive line part of the ball. The other part, the glaring need from last year's team, was the defensive part of the ball.
Yes.
There's been a lot of transfers come in on that side. The biggest one that stands out to me, I think he's going to make a lot of difference, is Hunter Osborne, a defensive lineman, transferred from Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
He's from Trussville, Alabama, so he probably a little under-recruited by the Alabamas, Auburns, Georgias. Yep. Went to Virginia. I think he's matured now back in SEC country. I think he's going to make a big difference.
Absolutely, and that's only one of numerous guys that they've brought in. I think a significant guy. They've brought in a few other 4-star prospects. We'll look at Jaheim Johnson from Tulane, and they also bring in Jaheim Johnson, the defensive back, and then a linebacker, Kamori House from North Carolina. A few 4-star transfer prospects. And they added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defensive backs just that I counted right here. So they're really overhauling some of these positions, and especially on defense. I wonder if this veteran core of secondary that they brought in is going to be able to kind of keep things, be able to defend the back end a lot better than what they were able to last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of these names that we've mentioned, you said, coming from Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, Tulane, some D2 transfers in. And I think there can be a tendency to kind of turn your nose up to, they're coming from a lower level of football. Does that mean we can't poach the guys that are coming from other big-time programs? But I think it's important to not look at it that way, because this just means they were maybe a little under-recruited. Maybe when they were 17 years old, they weren't athletically what they are now.
Right. Just
because they're coming from the G5, FCS D2, doesn't mean that they're not going to make a big difference in the SEC.
Absolutely. We can just take, it's not the SEC, but let's just look at a team that's in the national championship right now, Indiana.
Yeah.
I saw a stat earlier. I think they only have 7 4-stars on their team, 7 4-star prospects out of high school. That's absurd, and one thing that Coach Signetti did over there is he brought a lot of his roster from a group of 5 team at JMU, and he brought it to Indiana, and they went 10-3 last year, I believe. That's extremely impressive. We're seeing coaches being able to overturn rosters and just bring in talent, because Tulane was in the playoffs. They bring in a guy from Tulane. They're bringing in top talent. It doesn't. I think in the age of NIL, I wonder if top talent has kind of, is top talent always coming from Alabama, or is it coming from these some potential group of 5 schools that we're seeing, have a lot of success?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the portal's open for a couple more days. What do you want to see Arkansas finish out this portal run to feel like the roster's in a good position going into spring ball to get into the season?
No, it's a really good question, and I think you can answer it by addressing 2 needs on both sides of the ball. I do think you try to spice up the quarterback competition a little bit more. There's a lot of young arms out there. A transfer from Oregon, I forget the cat's name, but Austin Novosad, that's his name. The guy that's been a backup, because they've had Dylan Gabriel, Dante Moore, just wasn't able to break through. Get a guy that's been a backup behind a star quarterback for a few years, bring him into the lineup and help spice up the competition. Now, that's what I think you can do on offense. Defensively, I think you absolutely need to try and prioritize one of these top defensive linemen, edge rushers. I think with the Virginia transfer, they've done a good job of addressing the interior. I think now you need to address the exterior. It's been a little bit of a down cycle as far as edge rushers, I believe, but I do think there's some still top-end talent as far as edge rushers go that Arkansas can add, and that's what I think they can do to benefit their team this year.
Yeah, you've seen in the 2025 season how important getting to the opposing quarterback is.
Yes.
Miami and Indiana playing in the national championship have great D-lines that can get to the quarterback.
Absolutely.
Oklahoma didn't really have much of an offense, but made it all the way to the playoff because of how good they were on the defensive line. So that is definitely an area of need for Arkansas that I'd like to see them get ironed out to really be competitive in the SEC. One more thing, going away from the Hogs for a second, Walker White coming home to Arkansas to play for the UCA Bears.
That's awesome.
Your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. He was, believe he committed to Auburn originally and then transferred to Baylor.
Yeah.
2 just different quarterback situations there. I think UCA got an absolute steal in Walker White. I think he is a big bottle of potential. He's just not been able to get onto the field at the Division I level yet. And obviously I would love for him to stay at UCA all of his remaining years because it's great for the program, but if he can have one good year and then propel himself to the FBS level again, I think that would be awesome. But just right now, I think, wow, they've got a really top-tier quarterback going into Conway. I'm really excited to see what UCA can do with Walker White.
Yeah, that is an injection of instant offense for an offense that frankly needed it with UCA last season. So exciting times in Fayetteville, exciting times in Conway, exciting times in college football overall. Again, whether you like it or not, the portal is here to stay, and we'll be covering it all the way through. So continue to keep us in your feed.
Thank you guys for watching.